So let's get started. I just want to let everyone know that this session is being recorded. I believe all of the presentations will be uploaded to YouTube, or anyway, all the participants will get some kind of notification if you want to watch this presentation at a later time. So welcome everyone. We thank you so much for joining us here today. We know how busy you must be. We are a group of professional support services staff with the Toronto District School Board, and we work in different ways with families and schools to help all children succeed. I'm Fiona Curry, and I'm a psychologist and also the mother of a complex needs child. And speaking with me today will be Janine Daly, a wonderful speech language pathologist, and Sue Riley, an amazing occupational therapist. We're going to have some time at the end for questions, but Janine will be monitoring the chat. And then if you do have a question, we can then try to answer it at the end. Let's see here. We're also going to be sharing a lot of resources with you, and we will explain how to get them later on as well. So before we get to our presentation, I just want to do the land acknowledgement. And for some reason, I'm not getting the larger version. So just give me one moment so that I can read it properly. Okay. I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is situated upon traditional territories. These territories include the Wendat, the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Mississaugas of the New Credit, and the Métis Nation. I would also like to recognize the enduring presence of Aboriginal peoples on this land. All right. Sorry, just let me get set up here. So thank you so much for joining us. As I said before, we're going to be talking today about a lot of issues, and we specifically want to focus on issues that several parents might face because they have children with complex needs. And the past few years have been a very challenging time for many students and their families. But we know there can be even more challenges for families with complex needs children. We know that before we are ready to learn, we must focus on mental health and well-being, and not just for our kids, but for ourselves as well. Because when we feel safe, connected, and supported, we're able to learn and do our best. Now, sometimes when people hear the words mental health, they think mental illness. But mental health is really just feeling good about yourself, being able to carry out your daily tasks and activities, and having good relationships with others. We all have our good days and our bad days. This is a normal part of life, but having good mental health means that you have the ability to enjoy the happy and fun moments in your life and to cope better when things are not going well. What are some of the factors that contribute to good mental health? Today, we'll be discussing and providing tips for understanding and supporting your child's behavior, so your child is successful and your family can function as well as possible. Self-regulation, or how we manage stress. How to address your child's sensory needs. The connection between behavior and communication, and the tools you can use to help your child communicate what they want or need. The role of routines and structures using schedules and other tools. And we're going to give you a list of some resources that will help you connect with others and get help if you need it. Okay, so let's jump in. We want to start off by acknowledging the different challenges that most of you have likely faced being a parent or a caregiver with children with complex needs. We know that even before the pandemic, you likely faced many more challenges than most families, right? Like many of you, it's not just about how you get by day to day. It might even be hour to hour or minute to minute. And we just put up a partial list of some of the issues that you may have faced in the past or you currently are facing now. And we're not going to go over them in detail, but we just want to acknowledge that many of you are likely experiencing some of these, and that some of you may even have additional challenges because maybe you've had to face discrimination of some sort, whether it be due to race, culture, gender identity, or disability. So we just really want to validate that yours is not likely an easy role, and that we just really value your presence here today. So the first thing we want to do is talk about stress. Stress is a word we often use in a negative way. So for example, we say, I'm too stressed to sleep, or my children are stressing me out. But stress isn't always negative. We actually need a little bit of stress to perform well in life. So having some stress when you go to a job interview, or when you're doing a presentation, or maybe even when you're taking your child to an important doctor's appointment, it makes us more alert to have a little bit of stress, and it helps us perform better. The idea is to have just enough stress, but not too much. So in this diagram, if you look all the way over to the right, that's someone who's very stressed. You want to be in the middle somewhere. So when we feel high amounts of stress, hopefully we only feel them for short periods of time, and then we're able to return to a calmer and more relaxed state. So why are we talking about stress? In order to provide a supportive environment for a child, it's important for us as adults to try to manage our stress and to take care of our own needs first, as much as we can. And as parents, we know you are often taking care of everyone else's needs before your own. And sometimes this is really necessary, right? If your child is sick, or they need to attend an appointment, or they need your attention, of course, you're going to take care of their needs. But think about what happens when you're on an airplane and they make that announcement. They always say, in case of emergency, put on your own oxygen mask before putting on your child's oxygen mask. And so think of it this way: by helping yourself first, you actually are helping those around you and that you take care of, including your children. So this slide has more to do with taking care of our other needs, our emotional and mental health needs, although we know that everything is interconnected. The first point is an important one. Be gentle, as in be gentle with yourself. We need to treat ourselves the way we would treat a friend. We need to be forgiving and show ourselves kindness and compassion, because we're all just trying to do the best we can. Reflect. This refers to paying attention to your thoughts and feelings. This helps us understand what we need when it's time to slow down, and allows us to focus on what's important and meaningful in our life. Pause. So this can be hard, but whether you have 1 minute or 5 minutes, try to do something that you love, even if it's for a short time. Listening to music, having a cup of tea, calling a friend, going for a brief walk, even just a few deep breaths. It will help you at least feel a little bit more restored. Be committed. That means taking care of ourselves isn't just a one-day thing, right? It's a process. And the more that we do things that are good for us, so in terms of eating, drinking, sleeping, they become a habit. And when we listen to ourselves, we also become aware of when we need help. And whether it's for you, yourself, or for your family members, be sure to ask for help when you need it. Make use of respite programs or other programs your children might attend when they're available. If family members offer to help, take them up on it if you can. And just remember that you're not alone. A big source of our stress comes from uncertainty. And if we just think of the pandemic, for instance, about all the things that we can't control. And let's face it, we all like to feel like we're in control. So I just want to just touch on this really briefly. If we can shift our focus from thinking about all the things that we can't control to things that we can control, then that helps us calm down a little bit and to be able to reflect. So maybe the things that you focus on, the things that you can control, are things like your thoughts, how much you reach out to other people, if you ask for help, what you eat and drink. So when you're stressed, it can be very helpful to shift your focus in this way. And not only does managing your own stress help you feel and function better, but it also helps your children self-regulate or learn to manage their stress. Maybe think of a time when you were feeling stressed out. I'm sure you can all relate to this. And you were just being around or talking to someone who was calm helped you feel better. The same is true for our kids. Children actually learn to manage their stress by being around adults who are calm. And I know this is easier said than done, but this is a process called co-regulation, when we remain calm and help to calm down our own kids. Can I have the next slide? Thank you. What might you be seeing if your child is stressed? And for many families, a lot of these stress behaviors really became worse during the pandemic. Not for everyone. Some kids actually seem to do somewhat better being at home with their families. But now that everyone's back at school, you may start to see some of these stress behaviors. So it's really important for you to take note that if your child if there's a change in any way, if they're becoming aggressive, difficulty sleeping, their food habits change, maybe they have more sensory sensitivities, maybe they're withdrawing or even harming themselves in some way. That's a sign that they're in some sort of stress. And we're going to be talking later on in the presentation about where to get help and to look for the signs. It can be really helpful to understand behavior by looking at an analogy of an iceberg. So if you look at this, what's above the surface, the little part of the iceberg that's sticking above the water, think of that as the behavior, what you can actually see. And 90% of the iceberg is below the water. And that represents all of the things that may have happened in your child's life. Maybe it was earlier in the day because maybe they didn't have a good sleep. Maybe they were picky at breakfast and went to school a bit hungry. Maybe it was something happened at school. Maybe a fire alarm went off and they didn't have their headphones on and it really caused them to be, stressed out in some way. So behavior just doesn't happen for no reason or in a vacuum. It's important to kind of look for clues, like being a detective. And so if we can take a step back and say, my child is stressed, I wonder why, and just try to think about maybe some of the signs that could help give you some of the reasons for the behavior. And then you can come up with a plan. So reframing the way we see a child's behavior can also change the way we feel and react. A psychologist called Ross Green has a great quote: "Children do well if they can," which means that if a child is acting out or misbehaving, it might be due to a lack of skills or that the child is under a lot of stress, rather than the child is just trying to get under your skin or they're trying to do it on purpose. So it can help you shift from thinking, he or she is just trying to bother me, or they know I don't like that, to perhaps my child is doing something because maybe they don't have the skills or maybe they're too stressed out. So, if you're thinking, my kids are driving me crazy, you might start to think, are they hungry? Are they tired? Has something else happened during the day and maybe there's been a delayed reaction? So understanding that link between behavior and what your child is trying to communicate, that can really help you come up with a better plan. So now we're going to change our focus to discuss specific tools and strategies that you can use to support your child's learning and well-being. As we do so, you're going to notice there's an overlap between many of the tips we're going to be giving. For example, you'll see that the way we behave, feel, think, and communicate, they're all interconnected. They're all a part of our ability to regulate ourselves. That is to be in a calm state of alertness. And that is the optimal state for learning. So what can you do to help your children feel calm and safe? I'm just going to touch on a few items here, and then I'm going to pass it over to Janine. Just remember that if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll try to answer them at the end of our presentation. Okay, so once you have a better understanding of your child's behavior, maybe some reasons you think your child might be doing something, you can try some different strategies to help your child keep calm and to be able to complete their daily activities. It's really important to figure out what is the most motivating, or what we call reinforcing items or activities, something that your child will crawl over a table to get, that they absolutely love. Because what we want to do is we want to use some of these motivating items or activities to increase the behaviors that you want to see and to decrease the behaviors that you don't want to see. And some parents start getting a little bit uncomfortable because they think, you know what, I don't want to bribe my child to do anything. And I just want to be really clear. Reinforcement is not the same thing as bribery. Bribery is when you give a child a reward first in the hopes that he or she will do something you want. So I'll give you this candy if you promise not to fight with your brother. That's bribery. Reinforcement is requiring your child to do something you want them to do first, and then rewarding them. So the classic one is first broccoli, first you eat your broccoli, then you get your ice cream. So using reinforcement with your child helps to give them a sense of control and therefore a sense of calm, because they can predict what's going to happen next. And we've included some resources, what's called a reinforcer checklist, which goes through all of the different food items, activities that you can think of to help you generate a list. And sometimes kids will change. They'll eat one thing one week and not the other. I know that's with my son. So you might have to mix it up and use whatever works. If it's food, great. If not, if it's an iPad, no problem. You just might want to use a visual timer with the iPad so that perhaps your child gets, 5 minutes on the iPad, and then they have to do something else that you want them to do to get access. And remember, praise them as much as possible as you're giving them the reward. You cannot give too much praise. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Janine.
So thank you, Fiona. So hi, everyone. So I'm Janine Daly. I'm a speech language pathologist with the Toronto District School Board. And I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about some things that can help support your child's learning and behavior. So this all relates to what Fiona was just talking about. So to start, I want you just to take a moment to think about how you organize yourself during the day. So for me, I have 3 small kids at home, and I need to either write everything down on a calendar or put reminders in my phone. I need something to help me organize myself. And these would be considered visual supports. And I know that when I feel organized, I definitely notice I am a lot more calm and regulated, and that just helps the day run a lot smoother for me. And Sue's going to be talking about this a little bit more in just a few minutes. So for children who have limited language, they may benefit from visual supports just the same way that you and I would. So as you can see on this slide, there's 2 different types of visual supports here. And the purpose of them is really to help make things as concrete and predictable as possible for the child. So a first then board, which is the top part of the slide, can be used to help motivate your child to complete a task or a couple of tasks before getting a reinforcer. So you'll notice the first item on the first then board is usually the less desired activity, followed by something that's a lot more reinforcing. You could also use a token board where, you have the desired activity or desired item that the child would be motivated by, and they need to complete certain tasks or exhibit certain behaviors in order to get tokens on the token board. And I know even for myself with my young kids who are not yet able to read, I will even do things like I'll write down a list for the grocery store, or I'll write down a list of what needs to happen that day. And just the simple fact that there's that visual support there, I find that that can help them. So I'll do things in the grocery store where they get to give themselves a check mark, or they get to cross off one of the items. So they learn that, when the list comes close to the end, then we're almost done this, and it helps them transition to another activity. Another example of visual supports are choice boards. So choice boards give children the ability to express their wants and needs, especially when what they want and need is not something that's within sight or something that's more abstract, for example. So for a choice board, you could have pictures of your child's favorite food or favorite activities, something like a tickle game, a blanket game, something like that on the choice board. And this then gives your child the opportunity to communicate with you. If they don't have the words, they can communicate with you what it is that they are looking for in that moment. So it gives them a sense of control as well. And there's actually a great website called connectability.ca, and this will be in one of our slides at the very end where you can access this, but it's a great website. You don't have to sign up for it. You can just go on and you can actually make your own your own visual supports using this website. And it's great because you can also take real pictures. So you could take a picture of your child sleeping in their bed or brushing their teeth or, playing that blanket game. And then you can print them off and you could actually make the choice board or the first then board very personalized to your child. You could also use or create a visual schedule with the pictures too. So it could be just showing them what's going to happen during the morning routine. And I also just want to stress too, it doesn't have to be fancy. So anything at all that you use to support those visual skills, because so many kids are visual learners, as adults are too. So you could even try drawing out a schedule. And another thing I will mention is I do love referencing Pinterest, which is an app that you can download. And if you just put in Pinterest visual supports, you'll see a lot of examples in there as well. So on the next slide here, I just want to mention another thing that you can do to help, children for changes that are going to happen is you can use things called social scripts. So it's basically a way to help prepare your child for a situation. So the story in the social script is written from your child's perspective to help them increase awareness of an upcoming situation. So with these social scripts, they're read repeatedly, and then again, you would read it just before the situation is about to occur. So you can see in this slide, there's one from Autism Little Learners on staying with my cohort at school, or you can make your own as well. So those are just a few examples of things that you can do to provide those visual supports to help keep your child, as calm and regulated and help them understand what's going to happen next. I'm now going to pass it over to Sue Riley, the occupational therapist, and she's just going to discuss further some sensory strategies to support self-regulation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Janine and Fiona. I know this is a lot of information, but we're hoping that with the resources and in the question time, you can give us some of your own personal questions as well. I'm an occupational therapist at the Toronto District School Board, and I have the privilege of serving children and families. I'm also a mom to a daughter who had some challenges with sensory processing and with communication. And so I've learned through her life and through my professional experience that we take in the world through our senses. You know, we have 8 senses, 5 of them we talk about the most, but then there's 3 others that are really important. I just want you to take a minute. You've been listening for a while. I want you to close your eyes, remove the visual sense, and I want you to think about what you're hearing, what you're smelling. Do you have the taste of coffee in your mouth or a drink that you're having? How does the chair feel on your body? Are your feet on the floor? Are you lying on the couch? You know, I just wanted you to take that brief moment to realize that our senses are the way we take in the world. And they're very powerful for our children and ourselves and helping us to feel calm or just right or in a good space. And so I'm going to share a few practical strategies with you. At the bottom of this slide, there's a link to our website that can give you more information. But just as we look at this slide, consider how these images affect you, your child, or other members of your family. Do you feel better when your house isn't cluttered? How about when you're in fluorescent lights inside or in the natural light outside? When you're able to see nature, how does that make you feel? How about certain smells in the house? I know the smells of my mom's homemade cookies always makes me feel so good. How about the certain sounds that you hear? How about music? Music is such a powerful tool in helping us to feel calm and safe, and also upregulating us and helping us to feel more alert. How about things you touch? Soft towels, a cuddly blanket, a pillow. Think about what changes in your environment at home that you could do to make your child feel safe. Another thing we have to recognize is that the information we take in can help us feel calm and safe, but also can help us feel stressed and alert. For example, think of a loud noise or a busy mall or a restaurant where it's difficult for maybe yourself or your child to process all that information coming at you. So the reason I'm mentioning these things is I want you to be able to take these things into account when you think about life at home. We sure do try to take these things into account in making your children feel safe at school. Well, one thing with my daughter is she needed to move. And, you know, all of us need to move. We're made to move no matter what your physical abilities are. And, you know, it can really be a calming thing to have movement in our lives. So, for example, my daughter really needed to move. And I learned, even though she didn't have a lot of words when she was younger, that what her body looked like when she needed some movement input or when she needed some sensory input. So, as her co regulator, as Fiona mentioned, I would say, what do you need, Emily? What do you need? Do you need, I would give a choice. Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to have a bath, which she always found really calming? Or do you want to play with Play-Doh or your magic sand? And just in giving her those 3 choices, it really helped her feel in control, get the sensory input that she needed to feel safe and secure in that moment. One of the cool things about sensory input is it can be helping. You know, one of the things we talk about is heavy work as occupational therapists, and that's the feeling of pressure in our joints. And pretty much universally, that's calming for everybody. And, you know, you can get it by running, playing in the park, walking, but also by helping, maybe helping mom clean the tables, maybe helping dad do some sweeping, maybe carrying your laundry basket or pushing it through the house. So you can use those things. It's going to make your child feel great because they're contributing, but also get the sensory input that they need. A really fun activity is this little guy here on the right. You can get your couch pillows, stack them up, use sheets and blankets, and make a cozy corner or a fort. You also have a place to relax, but the exercise and putting that together has been so good for their bodies and minds. A new 8th sense is really being talked about a lot lately. The big word for it is interoception. But basically, what it means, the feedback that our body gets from our hollow organs, which is our lungs, our heart, our stomach, our bowel, our bladder. All of these things are closely tied to our emotions. And, we all know this. For example, right now, I think Fiona and I and Janine have some butterflies in our stomach, but that's because we're a little bit nervous about sharing with you and sharing the right information. We all know that our body gives us feedback from our internal organs that affect our emotions. But sometimes our children don't read that information well. They need help. For example, they might not know when they're hungry or feel hungry. They need our help. They may not know when they need to use the washroom. And helping them identify and respond to those internal cues can really affect how they're feeling and their emotions. Just a few quick things of what you can do at home. My daughter, Emily, loved to rock. And I don't know if you can tell, I'm actually on a rocking chair because it actually helps me feel calm and safe too. Going to the park, you can do that. But I think our first one was a little Tykes rocking chair that we got at Value Village or a garage sale. And just having that for Emily to sit on made her really feel safe and calm. Music was one thing that we really used in our house to have some nice calming background music. Having a squirt of shaving cream, whipped cream, pudding on a cookie sheet is so much fun to play with. And even you can make it a game by making shapes and letters. It might be a little bit messy, but your child's going to feel calm and engaged. And of course, that helps us feel calm as well. A great thing, we all love playing with water. When I was in kindergarten, I remember those days. I loved going to the water station. At home, you can just use a kitchen bowl with a squirt of dish soap and then add some whisk and some kitchen utensils. And it's a great fun activity that could engage your child for quite a long time and support them in feeling calm. If you're worried about the mess, try outside or on your balcony if that's a safe place, or even in the bathtub without having a bath. Just put the bin of water in the tub and it'll be a lot easier to clean up. Okay, we're just getting to the end here because we want to get to your questions. But one thing that's really important, when I talked about interoception, and there's a nerve called the vagus nerve that starts way up in our brain and runs all the way down to our toes. And it runs right through our diaphragm, which is what we use for breathing. So we're going to use one breath together. I'm going to lead you in taking one breath. At home or with your child, you would probably want to do this for a few minutes. It's a good time during transitions, like before you're going to sleep or before getting on the bus for school or when you come home. But let's try it together because there's something that you don't usually think about when breathing. We need to breathe in for a shorter time than we breathe out, because when that happens, it massages that vagus nerves and gives us a feeling of calm. So feel relaxed where you are, feet on the floor, take your hands, put them on your tummy, your belly, on the lower belly. And I'm going to count to 4. And as you're going to do that, I want you to push against your lower belly on those hands. And then we're going to breathe out for 8. Okay, let's give it a try. Ready? Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Did you run out of breath? It takes practice, and it's something you want to try with your child. Some of our kids have a hard time learning, but you can do blowing bubbles as a way to practice blowing out. You can blow a pinwheel that you can get at the dollar store. You can lie on your back, which is a fun way with your child's favorite stuffy. Put it over your lower belly and watch the stuffy go up and down. Or you can give your child a visual like Janine was talking about, like, let's smell these cookies and let's blow on them because they're hot. Just a quick reminder, we work on this a lot with your children at school, but sitting, we don't need to sit to learn. We can move to sit to learn. So we might use a ball chair, a special stool, a rocking chair, lie on your tummy. If you're sensitive to noise, you might use headphones, but there's lots of ways of engaging our senses. And most importantly, I know one theme of this conference is joy and belonging and wellness. And a great way to have this wellness is to do fun activities with your family, whether it's going swimming, whether it's art arts and crafts together. Maybe you want to ride a bike together. You know, maybe your child can't ride a regular bike, but there's adapted bikes out there that you can use. Right here and in our resources is a Zach's list, which is on Facebook. And it's where parents of children with special needs sell and exchange equipment. So check that out if you're looking for something. I appreciate your time today. I'm going to pass it back over to Fiona.
Hi again, everyone. I just want to quickly go through a few more slides, and then we'll have time for questions and we can briefly show the resources. We just want to talk about some things that you can do if you're feeling that things aren't going well for your family, you feel someone's at risk. So just to touch on this, and again, you'll get copies of our slides, you can look at it in more detail. It's the most important thing is with tantrums, and it's easier said than done, but if you can prevent one from happening in the first place, that is the best solution. So are there things that you can do by looking for clues with your child? Can you make it cooler, darker, less demanding? Can you make it less noisy? Because you are the expert of your own child and you likely know what might be bothering them. So if there's something you can do in the environment to prevent the tantrum from happening, then that is the best plan. Make sure you keep breathing. And we've also got some information about safety planning as well. If you're finding that your child is having a lot of tantrums at home, then definitely speak to the school team. And it's so important for you to communicate on a daily basis with your child's school team. And, you know, the good things and the bad. Don't be nervous about saying things like, you know, your child might have been aggressive in the morning, or they didn't sleep well, or they didn't eat breakfast. The more information that your child's classroom team has, the better that they can then deal with the situation and maybe lower the demands for the day, knowing that your child may be not at their best. Okay, next slide. So when to reach out for help. Often parents want to know when they should reach out. And so we put up a few signs that you probably will need some help. So if something is happening at home that's challenging and it's happening more often, or it's more severe in intensity than it was before, if your child is being more aggressive to themselves or to other people, if you can't take your child out in public and do the fun things that you normally do, or you can't do it at home anymore because you're too worried about your other kids being near your child, if your child stops doing the fun things that he or she would normally want to do, or there's changes in their sleeping or eating habits, and especially if your child is starting harming themselves or other people, or these behaviors have worsened. So reach out for help. And there are many people that can help. Start with your child's teacher, and you can also speak with the support staff in the classroom. Every school has special education teachers and of course the principal. And then every school has a school team, including people just like us. So there's going to be someone from psychology, a social worker, speech language pathologist, occupational and physiotherapist, as well as child and youth workers and child and youth counselors in some schools. So having a meeting, because you're part of the team, you're part of the school team as well. You can always request to have one, and then we can talk about what might be the resources that you can access both in the school board and out in the community. We also have some links in our resources about how you can attend some of our parent virtual office hours. So that's something that's really important to look out for. Okay, we just thought we would spend a little bit of time talking about resources. Sue, do you want to do this part, or is that something you want me to do?
Sure. I can do that. Thank you,
Great.
Fiona and Janine, and for everyone attending. And I can't see the chat because I'm presenting from my computer, but I'm going to show you some resources, and then maybe Fiona and Janine can read our questions out. just so that you know, I think Janine has put in the chat a link to a PDF version of this presentation, and then you can save it on your phone or on your computer, and you can have access to these links anytime. But just to, you know, if you click here, and I'm hoping you guys can see that on the screen, you'll see that there's folders of resources here, some on sensory, some on learning, some on communication, and other caregiver resources. For example, if we click on this folder, there's a lot of things here that you can look into further that can give you some more information. As well, Janine was talking about that great site connectability. And then here she has it right here. If you click on there and click on the link, you will go right to connectability. So this will take some time to go and look through, but I just wanted to let you know that those things are there. Fiona mentioned the virtual office hours that are at this link, and many of our departments and our mental health and well-being committee has times to actually spend with you and discuss any challenges or things you would like to talk to about in a bit more detail. And there's also the QR code for those of you guys who are techie that want to use your camera to focus in on that, and it'll take you to the resources as well. So Janine and Fiona, are there any questions there?
So I'm not seeing any. I don't know if anybody wants to, you can unmute yourself and you can ask a question, or if you feel more comfortable typing it in the chat, we can do it that way as well. But we have a few minutes. So if anybody has any questions, please let us know.
And if you think of a question after the presentation, you know, just remember that there are professionals like us at every school. Mm-hmm. And so there are people you can talk to.
I would like a copy of the links, but can you send to my email? Because I don't know how to get it from this chat.
Yes, for sure. We can do that. Annetta, can you put if you're comfortable, can you put your email in the chat, and then I'll copy it and I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
If you want to put it, you can even do it privately and send it to Sue directly.
Yeah, if you don't want everybody to see it.
No, it doesn't bother me.
Okay, thanks, Annetta. Just put it in the chat. I'm going to copy it right now, and I'll send it to you after the presentation.
So we'll get a copy of your presentation, because I kind of came in late because I just took my grandson to swimming.
Oh, I totally understand. I will definitely send you a copy of the presentation, and you'll have my email if you have any other questions. Okay?
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Anyone else have anything they wanted to share or ask?
We really appreciate your time on this beautiful day. It's so gorgeous out there. I hope everybody can get outside.
Yeah. And we just appreciate you taking the time. We know that weekends, and I can say this, having a child with very complex needs myself, sometimes weekends can be the hardest time of the week. Because our kids are home. There's a lot of unstructured time. Sometimes it can be very challenging. So we really do appreciate you taking time, knowing that there are probably a million things going on in the background as you're trying to listen.
And I think, just speaking from experience as well, as I mentioned, I have 3 little ones, and I find, you know, I'll go to webinars or seminars like this, and there's so many great ideas, but it's also overwhelming. So one thing I try to do myself as well is, even if you can take one thing and try implementing that, see how it goes, and maybe tweak it a little bit if you need to. If that's a success, then maybe you can add another tool or strategy that you learned as well. It takes time. And you know, I was speaking with a social worker recently, and she said, you know, kids change with us. So I think that's something for us to really be cognizant of as well, and be aware of that, you know, us making these small little changes can have huge impacts overall. And just knowing that our kids will change with us as well.
I'll just share a really brief statement that I like to say to myself on really difficult days. Your track record for getting through difficult days is 100%. So that always cheers me up when things are not going well. So I hope that will, and what Janine just said, will also kind of help you know that you're not alone. There's many of us out here who have children with a variety of needs. And so we're not just professionals, but we're also parents coping with many of the same issues as you are. So please know we're out here to help. And as Janine says, maybe you take one thing away from the presentation. Maybe you go to the teacher and say, I'm really interested in trying this. What do you think? Can you give me some tips? It could be something as small as that.
I have one question. I'm sorry to be late with my question, but what if you have a child who doesn't like to go to bed early and I'm trying everything and it's not working well? Oh, and then he doesn't want to sleep by himself either. What do you do with that?
Sue, I don't know, do you want to, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Fiona, and then I'll chime in.
I think one of the big tips I have, and I know this is so hard for parents, try to keep a consistent routine, even on the weekends. I know we all like to do fun things, but when our kids stay up late on the weekends, it makes the weekdays really hard. So if they're going to bed at 8 o'clock, and I know your child may have some difficulties doing that, but for example, if they're going to bed at 8 o'clock during the week, I would have them go to bed at the same time on the weekend. What I would also look at is making sure they're not napping, which is really hard. I don't know how old your child is, but with some of our younger kids, it's really hard for them to go to bed when they are napping during the day. And then there are things that you can do to kind of help create a calmer environment. I don't know, Sue, if you have some tips about creating that environment.
I was just, and I from having a child who has trouble with sleep as well for many, many years. The first thing I can say is don't be too hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself, like Fiona said. And I know even just small changes can make a difference. Having a dark room, a room that has some favorite things, limiting kind of screen time if you can. I know that's difficult, but at least an hour before bed, trying to do something that's not screen related, maybe going for a walk, doing something else that's a bit more active, and then following a routine that might go through with a bath, or just like Fiona said. And sometimes we can have white noise that really helped my daughter.
Same with mine.
Yeah, and you can even find it on your phone if you just look up white noise, and there's actually something called brown noise and green noise, and these are all things that can help the brain calm before sleeping. So you can just play that in the background until they fall asleep. And I know it's really hard when they want to sleep with you. They want that connection. So kind of doing something like reading a story or cuddling, or letting them know I can stay for 5 minutes, or maybe you stay 10 minutes and then cut it by a bit each day. But don't be hard on yourself. This takes time. You're getting the sleep that you can. And actually, because I have your email, Annetta, I'll send you something as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Annetta, I'm just going to chime in as well. So in terms of using visual supports as well. So I had just very briefly mentioned, I'm not sure if you caught it or not, but even, setting it up. So as Fiona said, making sure it's very routine, but even using a visual schedule to show them what's going to happen, the sequence of things that will happen. Because the thing is that our words are transient, meaning they go in one ear and they go out the other, but visuals are very concrete. And so many individuals, really rely on that visual support to help them understand the words that are spoken. So even doing things like a visual schedule could include, okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a bath. Then we're going to put our pajamas on. Then we're going to brush our teeth, and then we're going to read a book, and then it's bedtime, right? So keeping it concrete and keeping it very routine like that, but having that visual support can also really help. It's also very calming and regulating, as I said, even for us to have visuals. So for children especially, I think it can be very beneficial for them too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions anyone else has?
Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We know you might have another session, or I think we're the last session of the day. So it's
Oh,
time to get outside and enjoy that lovely sunshine. We hope the resources are helpful for you. And we hope our paths will cross again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.